The PlayStation 1 continues to be a treasure trove for weird relics and hidden gems, from Star Fox clones to domino-based strategy to whatever the hell this is. The 5th generation was a golden age for game studios trying anything and everything to stand out from the crowd. One of those developers was a brand new studio called CyberConnect, a name which may sound more like an Albert Pune movie from the 80s than a game developer, but you'd definitely recognize some of their biggest titles: dotHACK, Azura's Wrath, and a billion 3D anime fighters. Their first title, however, would kick off a smaller but no less consequential franchise near and dear to the company called the Little Tail Bronx universe. Tail Concerto mixes anthropomorphic characters with a steampunk setting, rideable robots, and a highly unique blast and grab combat system. The game stars a police dog named Waffle, who lives on a set of floating isles connected by airship travel. A group of mischievous kittens called the Black Cat Gang are causing all sorts of problems for the people, led by Flare, Stare, and Alicia. Yeah, that last one doesn't rhyme. It turns out Alicia is Waffle's childhood friend, back in the picture, but spearheading a criminal operation. They're after these crystals all spread across the various islands, hoping to deliver them to a shady merchant named Fool, who promised them that he'd fund the founding of a new island for cat people to live. In actuality, he's looking to revive an ancient war weapon called the Iron Giant.
The Iron Giant?
The Iron Giant?
The Iron Giant.
The Iron Giant has been resurrected.
What you currently have in your mouth is art!
It's a very Saturday morning plot with a small pea-sized droplet of anti-colonization. And when you consider that Fuga, the game about firing child soldiers out of cannons, is a prequel to this game, it makes a disturbing kind of sense. The people of this setting either don't really know about the horrors of the past or are willfully ignorant to it. Either way, it's not a subject that comes up a whole lot, and the game is generally aimed at kids. So the cats throw cartoon bombs and no one really gets hurt. Well, except for these people, they're fucking dead. The gameplay generally involves flying your airship to a new location, finding out the Black Cat Gang has infiltrated it, and getting to work destroying their machines and capturing the kitties. You have a bubble blaster that can trap the cats, and swingy arms to grab them, as well as grabbing objects that you can toss at enemy vehicles and bosses to do extra damage to them. While the game supports the analog stick, the right analog stick goes completely unused. So while you're not stuck with tank controls, you won't have a lot of control over the camera either. Instead, you'll use the left shoulder buttons to raise or lower your view, which mostly impacts your throwing arc. Otherwise, you won't be using those buttons all that much, except for the last area. We'll get to that later. One thing I should mention about Tail Concerto is that it's not very long, and also not very complex. Despite being an action-adventure, it's only about 5 hours long. Now, the closest spiritual cousin that I would consider to this game is Mega Man Legends, and that game isn't much longer, but it still has a bit more going on from moment to moment, while Tail Concerto largely hits you with the same loop from island to island. It does make some small design shifts, like Furzin having rooms connected by a series of minecart tracks, or the secret base giving you 5 minutes to escape before it self-destructs, or one set of tiny islands that gives you a jetpack to try and launch yourself from rock to rock. That's all cool, but the end result is usually the same, which is that you'll be capturing cats and then facing a boss. The bosses are as cute as the enemies themselves, but there's no real variation to them as they're all defeated the exact same way. Spam bubbles for a while until they throw a bomb at you, then throw the bomb right back at them. This never really changes up until the final boss, who doesn't even bother giving you anything to throw with, so you just have to shoot it 11,000 times. I can't believe the dotHACK developers would make a game with repetitive combat. I'm being a little reductive though, because the bosses themselves do have a couple of unique attacks, it's just that I'd like to have seen more. There's very little in the way of side content, aside from finding these star boxes that contain pieces of photographs. Once you've collected a full photo, you can view it from the photo album inside Waffle's house. Disappointingly, you can't use the record player to play music. It merely brings up audio settings, so I feel like that was a missed opportunity. After you've finished the game, you can roam around in this area in Waffle's PJs, with the Black Cat Gang now settled into town and just hanging out. This is a bit bare bones, you can't fly anywhere despite a guy telling you to try and complete your photo album, but the new interactions are fun at least, and little creative touches like that are sprinkled all throughout the game, like this one homeowner who understands players are going to completely trash her house, or pipes flashing to indicate that you're facing them correctly for a transfer jump. The second time you visit the jetpack island, your fuel is maxed out, allowing for significantly longer flights so you can fully explore the area and find all the photo boxes. If you were to look up PS1 visuals in the dictionary, you'd probably see a screen cap of this game. It's a very cool dictionary. Very boxy buildings and hard-edged cliffs, pixel art textures. It's all such a vibe that I'll never get tired of. I like the island of Coolant, full of ice crystals and bold aquamarine coloring, and these low-poly kitties are super cute. Oddly, not as cute are the hand-drawn portraits in anime cutscenes, which feel like they only get to about halfway to the style of Miyazaki's Sherlock Hound designs, and end up looking a bit wonky, at least to me. The music kinda reminds me of the replacement music you'd hear in a 4Kids localization, which is not to my taste, but could enhance the Saturday morning feel for people who grew up on Yu-Gi-Oh! Or The voice acting, however, is pretty bad, despite a cast that includes Lonnie Manella and Amanda Wynn Lee.
I'm sorry? Did I startle you?
Princess Teria, I'm going to get in trouble if you walk around unescorted.
Part of it is the localization, which alternates between decent and extremely stiff. There are some exchanges that are just weird, though.
Wow, did you figure that out all by yourself? You say? Is that your attitude toward my life's work?
And whenever Waffle needs to scream, it's got big I don't want to wake my neighbors energy.
Alicia!
While I've been negative in a few areas, I want to stress that I still consider this game to be a bit of a gem. It's just that not every hidden gem is a secret 10 out of 10 masterpiece. I could say that Moon Remix RPG is a hidden gem, in fact it was my 2020 Game of the Year, but that doesn't mean certain aspects of it don't infuriate me. And nothing about this game irritated me more than the final hour. After the Iron Giant has awakened, Alicia and Waffle travel inside to defeat it at the core. In order to reach the final boss, you'll have to do some 3D platforming, which is not the game's strong suit. Even outside this section, having to make some basic jumps can be a pain, because of the robot's slippery handling. Now imagine being slippery and having half the gravity, and needing to judge gap distances without having full control of the camera. Get used to seeing your robot miss a platform and fall all the way to the bottom. But don't worry, it gets better. There are also tiny little enemy fish that can hit stun you if you come into contact with them. And the floating platforms move around, which means you can get hit by a fish that suddenly swings into frame. Sure, you could shoot them all, but they just respawn back in a couple of seconds. This section is frankly bizarre and doesn't play to any of the game's strengths. It's not quite as aggravating as Psychonauts Meet Circus, as the level is only comprised of 3 platforming chunks and you're not racing against the clock, but it's still a very odd way to end the game, especially one meant for all ages. Now, unfortunately, Tail Concerto sold less than 100,000 copies in Japan and was considered a flop. But that didn't deter CyberConnect, who continues to make games in the Little Tail Bronx series to this day. The franchise got a DS title called Solitarobo Red the Hunter in 2010, and a mobile game in 2014 called Little Tail Story that sadly no longer exists. The Fuga games are successful enough that a third one is coming out next year, but even if they weren't successful, I don't think that would stop them. Thanks to CyberConnect's versatility as a licensee, they can keep the lights on with their Naruto and Demon Slayer games while still being able to pursue passion projects, which is honestly the dream, and I'm happy that they can make these weird little games that mix childhood fantasy with grim reality. So if you're looking for a PS1 game that's a little different and not a huge time investment, give Tail Concerto a look. It may be simpler than what you're used to, but it's still got a special little place in gaming history. Or as the king would say, Thanks for watching this video. Next week I'll be looking at the December Patreon Voters' Choice, Tonic Trouble for the N64. Uh-oh. If you'd like to vote on the next one, join my Patreon today to support the channel and get your name in the credits. Otherwise, you can like and subscribe and share my channel with your friends. I'll be taking Christmas week off, but on New Year's Eve, I'll be back with my massive Game of the Year video, so look forward to that. Until then, you'll find me in another castle.